coming. For us, it's an enormous honor to have Matilde Perez with us tonight here in London and as part of the Pinta program. We're really thankful for the invitation, especially because it's a sort of rare invitation, and we were able to bring Matilde to the UK. So it's quite an honor to be with the curator, Ramon Castillo, with the artist herself, with Morgana, who is in charge of all the production, and Andres, who will be our translator tonight. So we would do this in Spanish, but I understand that it would be better to translate for some people that do not speak Spanish. So the idea is I will be presenting the group and a bit of Matilde's biography, and then we'll see some images of her work and ask her some questions about the specific work and basically her life and time. So I will try to keep my presentation as short as possible. I just would like to begin by saying that at a very young age, she claims that at the age of 6, she knew she wanted to be an artist. And you might think that statement is sort of obvious or perhaps a bit banal, but the fact is that in the early 50s, it was a really rare situation and idea to want to enter university to be an artist. So she did enter the Universidad de Chile into the art department, where she immediately eventually became full professor and was teaching painting and drawing. And with the times, there were other peers and colleagues that were also working in this abstract mode, which was completely foreign, completely visual foreign language at that time in Chile. So Matilde, together with Ramon Castillo and Gustavo Poblete, became part of what was known as El Grupo Rectángulo. So that was a very important beginning, but the amazing thing was rather than for Matilde to stay in Chile and work within the group, she won a scholarship, a grant, to go to France in the early 60s. At the same time that Julio Leparc was sort of doing the same thing. For us, for Chileans, it's quite an anomaly for this to actually happen. She has been the only Chilean that had that kind of exposure, being in the 60s, with the Graf group and being part of that cultural momentum of defining sort of art history. So she did the first trip there in the 60s, then came back to Chile, and after having had that experience in Paris, began to include different materials in her work, such as metal, wood, and was thinking of painting, not more as just putting paint on a canvas, but expanding that whole thing. That completely marginalized her from her peers, because they still had that traditional view that a painting had to be painting on the canvas. So she has been pretty much on her own. As her son was just saying, it was sort of like an auto-exile, a self-imposed exile in a way, not having other people around her. So in the 70s, she goes back to Paris and had a very fruitful encounter, which I would love to talk to her about that and to see what happened. And then in the 80s, she came back to Chile and continued to teach and communicate with her peers, but very much on her own, very much misunderstood, and the only woman working in this field. So, whereas abroad she won numerous prizes, was invited to exhibit in Paris and won awards and things like that as part of that abstract movement, let's say the neo-vanguard of the 60s and 70s from the abstract movement, and she was very much part of that. So I really would like to thank and also honor Ramon Castillo, because he was the first person to spot Matilde and give her a retrospective in 1999. If it hasn't been for the work that Ramon they've done together through conversations and exhibitions, we would hardly have access to her work. So it is a great honor, and one thing that we've learned is that it's sometimes very difficult to study art history without the voice of the artist. And that's why we're really lucky to have Matilde here, to hear her in her own words. And the second thing is that curatorially, curators are as important as well because they create the perfect platform to exhibit the work in the right context. So to have them both here together is a real honor, and I'm very happy that I've been invited to do this. So let's speak with them. And let's start with Matilde. Should we go to the retrospective? Okay, so we'll begin with the retrospective. There's a video of the first retrospective of Matilde Perez.
Para la síntesis, lo que vamos a ver ahora es una parte de la exposición que se hizo en los 99.
What we're going to see here is a part of an exhibition that they did in 1999.
Y por motivos también de tiempo me parece que las imágenes nos van a ayudar a ver esta exposición.
And because of time reasons, he thinks that the images will help us visualize and get a sense of the exhibition.
Lo que estamos viendo es la sala Mata del Museo Nacional de Bellas Artes.
What we are looking here is the Mata room of the National Museum of Bellas Artes.
Y vemos cómo el trabajo de Matilde se puede apreciar puntualmente a través de la iluminación que cada trabajo tiene.
And we see how Matilde's work can be seen or precisely seen by and thanks to the illumination that each work is highlighted.
¿Qué es lo fundamental? Poder reconstruir los procesos creativos de Matilde Perez.
The fundamental aspect was to be able to reconstruct the creative processes of Matilde Perez.
Y por lo tanto permitir una mirada de conjunto de su trabajo, que tal como se anunciaba es en metal, es serigrafía, es madera.
And by doing this, we can see an entire sort of body of work that is very varied, that utilizes different materials such as wood, steel, etc.
El desafío entonces era realizar una exposición que fuera una síntesis de su trabajo.
The challenge then was to make an exhibition that would synthesize the concerns around and of her work.
Y eso está en la misma lógica de lo que se está exponiendo en estos momentos en Pinta.
And this sort of follows the same logic of what's being exhibited here at Pinta itself.
Es decir, demostrar que Matilde Perez pertenece a un contexto histórico.
The intention is to demonstrate that Matilde Perez belongs to a very specific historical context.
Que tiene una investigación visual específica.
That has a very specific sort of way of carrying out visual research.
Que nace a fines de los años 60 y que desde ahí en adelante ella va profundizando.
That is born, or was born in Matilde by the end of the 60s, and ever since then she has been sort of digging deep into these concerns.
Una forma entonces de poder aproximarnos a este proceso creativo.
A way then for us to approach to this creative process of Matilde Perez.
Y para que la propia Matilde también hoy día ha aceptado estar con nosotros y poder participar.
And for which Matilde has also agreed to be sitting here with us today and conversing with us.
Entonces vamos a ir estableciendo un diálogo con ella.
We're going to establish a dialogue with Matilde
a partir de las imágenes.
Beginning from the images, or taking our cues from the images.
Su primer periodo figurativo.
Her first period, figurative.
Y en donde está con un autorretrato.
This first image that you see here is very...
Esa fue una foto que me tomaron en el balcón de mi casa mientras una señora